So a big welcome and thank you all for joining in. My name is Ankit Jiddal. I am the chairman and founder of Friends for Inclusion. I really like to welcome you all for this very important session on Own Your Health with Dr. Vikram Venkateswaran. With pandemic and all the new lifestyle diseases coming in, we realize how important it is for all of us to take charge of our own health. Even the United Nations in their Sustainable Development Goal, in Goal 3, specifically talks about all the measures that we need to take charge of our health. And the onus is always with us. While government and all the other stakeholders have a lot of role in it, it's important to understand where do we start our journey and how do we really take charge of our health. So for that, we at Friends for Inclusion, along with Healthcare India, decided to kickstart this journey and help all of our stakeholders, our community, to take charge of our health. A really big welcome to all of you. Before I start, I would like to thank Adam for joining in. He's a sign language interpreter. So all those people who are a primary user of sign language would request you to please pin him on your screen. So moving ahead, I would like to first introduce you all to Dr. Vikram Venkateshwari. He's a very good friend and we have been having a strong bond for many, many years. He has a very illustrious career and a very strong body of work. He is a BDS from Manipal. He has done his MBA from IMT Ghaziabad. He has over 20 years of experience, which includes 6 years of clinical practice. He has worked largely in consulting domain across India, UK, USA. He is regarded as the top 30 influencers, healthcare influencers in the country. He is the author of the book Own Your Health, which was recently released in March 2021 and have been getting some fantastic review. I've personally read that book. It's available on Amazon and Kindle. Please go and grab that copy. It is definitely very, very transformational. He's also the founder of the organization Healthcare India, and he'll talk more about that in this. Moving forward, I'll be your co-host for the session. As I said, my name is Ankit Rajiv Jindal. I'm the co-founder of Friends for Inclusion. I have nearly about 14 years of work experience working at the corporate and in the disability sector. At Friends for Inclusion, we work for the empowerment of people with disabilities and help them to live with independence, confidence, and dignity. Our area of work is divided into 3 broad categories. Firstly, innovate, where we try to build new technologies for people with disabilities. Number 2, educate, and this webinar is part of the Educate series, is where we talk about or build awareness about contemporary topic that impacts lives of people with disability. And facilitate is where we work with people and stakeholders to create a systemic change, which includes our initiatives around advocacy and all the other things that we work as far as activism at the central level. So today, of course, before we start the whole conversation on Own Your Health, I'm sure each one of us have a lot of questions on COVID, right? COVID-19 has disrupted our life like no one else has ever done. Like, it's the most unprecedented, I think, situation that all of us collectively has witnessed in the recent past. So with that, I would like to address that first, and I would like to request Dr. Vikram to talk about that first. Okay, how, as each one of us really start maintaining or being a, how do we really work around with COVID? So, Dr. Vikram, right, how do we really?
Yeah, thank you, Ankit, and good morning to all of you. Very warm welcome. If you've decided to invest an hour out of your precious day on trying to manage your health or learn more about it, I think it is the best investment you can make. COVID 19 or coronavirus, as we commonly know it, has been a pandemic that has not been predicted or has been anticipated. And the only reference to it can be found in two cases. There was a cholera epidemic in the 1830s, which affected Paris in particular, and it had a huge impact on Paris. And obviously, there are references to the Spanish flu of the 1918s, which lasted till late 1920. So, what we've learned about those two pandemics and what we can infer here is that viruses do come in waves, and this is a commonly known fact. And that means the second wave of coronavirus, which has impacted us right now, is kind of anticipated that this was going to come, but the severity and who it will affect was relatively unknown. Right now, our best defense against coronavirus 19, COVID 19, is not to get infected. I think a lot of doctors like Dr. Devi Shetty and all leading physicians in India have talked about it extensively. We simply don't have the infrastructure to take care of everybody right now. And the healthcare infrastructure as we stand, whether it's beds, ventilators, hospitals, doctors, nurses, they're overwhelmed to a great extent. They hardly recovered from first wave when the second wave struck. So my recommendation as a doctor, as well as somebody who's watching this up close and personal, is A, don't go out. Please resist from going out unless and until there's an absolute emergency. Maintain social distancing at all times. Do not let your guard down even for a second. Masks are mandatory, especially if you're stepping out. If you're in the house, then I don't think it's such a big concern unless and until somebody in the house is infected. 90 to 95% of people who have been infected with coronavirus or COVID 19 have been treated at home. This is a very unknown fact. We only focus attention on those who were admitted or those who needed ventilator beds or oxygen. But a lot of people have been infected and recovered at home, including friends of mine. There is a very strong protocol that has been established by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India. It is available on their site, which says what are the three scenarios in which you can handle coronavirus. One is obviously home quarantine for mild to moderate symptoms, moderate to high, and very high. And this protocol has been ratified by Indian Council of Medical Research, ICMR, as well. What we can do from our hands, obviously, don't get infected, number one. Number two, don't neglect your exercises. And I'll discuss that in detail as we go along. Physical exercise is a great way to counter the current pandemic, because here the attack of the virus is directly on your upper respiratory tract system. And as long as you keep that vital, keep your lungs strong, upper respiratory tract muscles strong, chances of you combating and recovering in case infected is much higher. The other area is to manage stress. I know these are stressful times, but these are unusual times, and they will get over. We have overcome far worse pandemics than this. 20 million Indians died in the Spanish flu, and our numbers are nowhere close to those numbers at all. So we will recover, we will come back, and there is a tomorrow. So you have to fight today to maintain that tomorrow, right? This may be a dark hour, but it hasn't been our darkest. And the stress is there, and there are ways to manage stress, and we'll discuss a little bit of that during the course of this. Last advice, if in case you're showing symptoms, please test and test early. The earlier you test, the earlier you swing into action, the better it is. And please strongly follow medical recommendations. Don't go to WhatsApp University. Don't read forwards. If you have a family physician, it's great. Listen to him or her. If you have a family doctor, listen to them. listen to them. Otherwise, go by standard protocols issued by doctors. See, this is a tough time. Not everybody knows what's going on, but at the same time, there are ways and means in which we can manage this better. Last but not the least, I've received a lot of phone calls on vaccination. Vaccination remains our last line of defense. There is no alternative because coronavirus is here to stay. If you have the opportunity to get a vaccination, do it immediately. Try to avoid crowds. So don't go into a place where they'll make you wait for 5 hours with 1,000 other people, because chances of picking up coronavirus from that crowd is much higher. So please get vaccinated if possible. If not, then wait your turn, but stay safe, stay indoors otherwise, right? So with that, Ankit, if it's okay, I'll get into the core of what I wanted to discuss today.
Absolutely.
COVID forms a very important part of the entire discussion because it's our reality today, and a lot of what I'm going to discuss will really help people overcome it.
Right. And the good thing about, for everybody's benefit, is that while we are talking a lot about the lifestyle changes, all of that will also help you in building your immunity and combating COVID also. But these are not only just COVID-19, these are very, very useful to maintain a health in the long run.
I agree with you, Ankit. And these are foundational things. And I'll tell you why they have become important. The easiest analogy I can give is when we try to swim, right? And if anybody has gone to the swimming pool for the first time or tried swimming in a pond or a lake or even a river or the ocean, the first thing that hits you is panic because we are not naturally used to water. And what is interesting, and this is what I learned when I was swimming, was that human beings are naturally predisposed to swimming. All animals are. If you throw an animal into water, even someone as large as an elephant to something as small as a cat can swim. And these are land animals, right? And the reason they're able to swim is it's naturally in our DNA to swim. Our muscle memory can swim. This is what we've known for years and generations. But what happens to us is we panic. And when we panic, we really stress out, we constrict our muscles, we stop our breathing, and that causes us to drown. It is not our inability to swim, but our reaction to the water that causes our downfall. I think the COVID-19 and most structural lifestyle diseases are like that. And especially for people with disabilities, I think it's very important not to panic because at the back of your head, you're already thinking, hey, I have this disadvantage anyway, and now I have to deal with another virus or a lifestyle situation, and I am not in a position to cope up with it. So coping mechanism, the foundation of that is not to panic. And the more you panic, the worse it'll get. So the idea is to relax, understand, accept, and you will see, like in swimming, naturally the body starts to float. And when the body starts to float, easier to breathe, and then you can start moving your hands and feet to go where you want to go. As opposed to moving your hands and feet in panic, which will cause your body to stiffen, weight to increase, and body to constrict, and you start sinking immediately. So next time you ever think of panicking because of COVID-19 or anything else, just think of the mental image of you swimming in a swimming pool or in a pool of water.
Right. That's a brilliant analogy. It's so important not to panic, right? I think that's a first natural response. Maybe over a period of time, we've all started getting more vulnerable. Personally, I've gone through these cycles of extreme panic, extreme anxiety, not to know what to do, having this feeling of being out of control. I think that's so important and such a valuable advice to start with, to not panic. The more we're going to panic, we're only going to drown ourselves.
Absolutely. The other thing is, I want to start with a bit of, maybe a controversial statement or clearing misconceptions. So whenever I talk to people about COVID-19 or any other health issue, they always say that, we have become weak because we have sedentary jobs and we are looking at the laptops and desktops and sitting and talking on the phone all the time. But our ancestors were so strong. They did manual labor. They obviously walked to the fields or whatever work they had to do. They had to walk mostly. There were not too many public means of transport or private transport. And that's what kept them strong. Well, that might be the case, but let us look at the figure here. This figure is given by World Bank. I'm purposely not using Government of India figures because there is always this confusion that Government of India is biased, but World Bank is a neutral body and they are not biased. If you look at the 1960s, and this is very fascinating to know, the average life expectancy of an Indian was around 41 years. Now you might say, hey, how is that possible? My grandfather lived till say 98 or 100. Uh, that is not the point. The point is your grandfather was one of the few who won the lottery, who lived beyond 5 years of age, because our infant mortality and under 5 mortality were very high. If you look at our grandparents' generation or their generation before them, there were at least a few children who never crossed 5 years of age. And those children were living longer because the reason we are living longer is not because we are stronger. We are living longer because the healthcare technology, medicine, protocols, vaccines have been brought in to keep us alive longer. This starts right from childhood, right? Ankit, if you go to the hospitals today, all hospitals have, incubation centers, incubators, they have neonatal ICUs.
Yes.
I just have covered a case from Medicover Hospital in Vishakhapatnam where they treated a preterm baby. Baby was, I think, 24 or 25 months, 25 weeks, right? And the baby has survived. So we have the ability to save lives now. But that means naturally, genetically, they are not stronger, which means that a lot more effort has to go in to manage your health. But this paradigm is very important. It's for people with disabilities or people without. This is a leveler for everybody. Unless you manage your health, that means you'll be constantly in need of medicine, hospitalization, nurses, support, etc. And the reason why a lot more of our, citizens in India at least are succumbing now to lifestyle diseases and getting infected with it, whether it's diabetes, hypertension, etc., is their inability to manage their health. While science has helped us live longer, science has done very little in helping us live that life very functionally. And a lot of medical research is being directed in that direction, right? But till then, we have to take charge of it. Health is a very individualistic concept, right? It is not a societal concept. My definition of health may be different from somebody else's because I know my type. What am I going to do? And unless that feeling comes in each one of us, it's very difficult for the government or a ministry of health or a doctor or a hospital to manage it. Right? I want all of you who are listening, and Ankit, this is very important because a visual image is very important. To see the progress India has made from 41 years or 42 years to 70 years now, 1960 to 2018. And this is remarkable considering the short span in which we have achieved this. But at the same time, what we can do from here is up to us, right? It's totally dependent on us. So with that, let me get into the first few things I want to talk about. And no matter what you do or what you are, nutrition is the foundation of good health. This is been documented time and time again. You can look at our ancient sources, the books that have been written in the past, especially on Ayurveda, which is essentially means, medicine from the gods. It lays heavy emphasis on nutrition. Similar text has been found in Chinese literature, Egyptian literature, Babylonian literature, and literature from Europe, where a focus a lot is on health in terms of nutrition. As a matter of fact, when the Industrial Revolution started in England, the average age of the industrial worker used to be 17 years in areas like Bolton and Manchester. And a lot of that was moved up with proper nutrition. That's why midday the factory started providing meals to the workers, and also from simple habits like washing your hands with soap. So nutrition is the foundation of your health. Without proper nutrition, nothing is possible. Today in India, and these are figures that are publicly available, about 190 million people are undernourished. And these are from various sections of society. It's not that they are just from the poorer sections of society. Even children from very affluent houses have poor nutrition because of the kind of diet they're on, right? Which is basically junk and processed.
Yeah, the factory food.
Yeah, I mean, you can call that fatty food, but almost 35% of our children under 5 are stunted, right? And it's because they are not getting the balanced diet, the balance between protein, carbohydrate, vitamins, and minerals. So why does this become important? This becomes important because your health is determined by your input. For those of us in manufacturing, or those who remember are in IT or mathematics, it's a simple equation: input, process, and output. The input is very important. If you don't have the right input, the right nutrition, the output is relatively poor, and the operations also suffer. Here, the input is your nutrition. Your operations is what your body does with it. And when you talk about people with kidney diseases, liver diseases, most of it is because they have been eating the wrong kind of food. And then the output, which is your health outcomes, which are there.
Like the conventional wisdom always said, "Jaisa aapka an, vaisa aapka tan." Right? So that quite literally translates into, as you eat, as your body would become.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it has very long-term impact, right? Diet doesn't impact you immediately, but it starts showing impact 3-4 years down the line. And then when it catches on, it's very difficult to correct it. So my first piece of advice to everybody is eat local. What I mean by that is, I see a lot of fads today that, hey, I'm going to have keto diet, I'm going to have a gluten-free diet, I'm going to have quinoa or something which is available in some other country, and it seems to have worked wonders. 95% it won't work for you, right? It's very important to eat local to the area. Now, the visual I have here is of idli, and one of the cases I discuss in my book is how the humble idli, which has been in India for about 1,500 years, has the right nutritional ingredient, the right blend of carbohydrates and proteins to start the day. Especially important for children, but also for a lot of us senior citizens, people who are battling other conditions, people with disabilities, those of us who are working in the corporate environment. It is a local food, and it's very local to south of India. Right? Similarly, there are local foods in the west of India, north of India, east of India. Stick to what is grown locally and eat only fruits and vegetables that are in season. Right now, it's the mango season. Better to have mango. Don't go for apples right now. This is not seasons are 6. We don't have 4 seasons, right? We have 6. We have Varsha Ritu and the other Ritu. So we have 6 seasons, and each season is marked by a festival that begins a season, and fruits that are very common in that season, and vegetables as well. Eat local, procure local. That really impacts your health, and you'll see a different effect on your health after that. The second rule of thumb is something that I really like, and this I received after talking to a lot of nutritionists. And it's a very simple rule of thumb. It's like, eat what your ancestors ate. Right. So it's a mantra. You just go back to your history, ask your parents if you don't recall, or ask somebody elders in your family, what did our people eat in those days? What was the breakfast? What was the lunch? What was the dinner? 99%, if you're eating what your ancestors ate, the impact on you will be positive. The reason for that is our DNA, our microflora in the stomach, a microfauna in the stomach, it's used to that kind of food, right? And the impact on your life will be significant. There are a lot of controversies. For example, when I was younger, there was a lot of emphasis on eating ghee. Right? Ghee was very important for our, especially in the winters, especially up north.
Yes.
And there was this big fad from WHO of universities saying that ghee has cholesterol and it went on for a while. And after 20 years of research or what kind of findings, they could not find any conclusive evidence. And now they're saying he is good, right? So, we have, luckily in this country, we've been here for about 5,000 years in the same land, right? So we've eaten a lot of these things for a very long time. Again, going back to idli has been mentioned in text as long as 1153, right? I think King Someshwara in Karnataka talks about it. Idli, incidentally, either came from Indonesia or from Saurashtra or endemic to Karnataka. It's one of the three theories, right? We don't know the truth. But either way, it's been around for more than 1,000 years, and that means our ancestors have eaten it. Similar thing for poha or paratha or any of the other diets that are very endemic to our region. The third piece of advice I want to leave everybody, and this is a very important section here, nutrition is very important. It's the most important thing for your health, is try to keep track of your nutrition. The mind has it plays a lot of tricks on you, right? It tells you, no, you've not had enough calories today, or you've had enough calories because you feel full.
Right.
It is best to quantify it. And one way, Ankit, I've seen that helps quantification is using either a diary. You can keep a diary, a physical diary with a pen and paper. Okay, what did you have for breakfast? What did you have for lunch? What did you have for dinner? And keep track. The other way to do it is using a mobile app. All of us are on mobiles nowadays, right?
Yes.
And then it's a good way to keep track of a lot of things. So there are apps. The one I use is Healthify Me. I think it is reasonably easy to use, even for someone who's challenged to use it. And they have converted about 20,000 food items from the Department of Nutrition, Government of India, and break it down into calorific values and add it there. So even very exotic dishes which are found only in India are mentioned there, right? And it is easy to use, and you can track it, and it's free to use. You don't have to pay for it. But if some of you have concerns about it, you can look at other apps. There is an app from Department of Nutrition itself, but it's slightly spotty at times. And then there are apps like MyFitnessPal.
MyFitnessPal
from Under Armour.
I have been using MyFitnessPal for quite a bit now.
Okay, excellent. So that will pretty much you get a sense of what have you eaten, and that will really help you keep track of how you're eating. So nutrition, I think, is the most important thing, Ankit. And if we are able to manage our nutrition, our health foundation is very, very strong.
Right. That's brilliant.
So from nutrition, I'll move to the second most important activity, according to me, and these are all under our control. Those of you who are trying to maybe lose weight, or you think you have to lose some amount of weight, I don't think health is equal to weight loss, right? Health and weight loss are two different parameters. But obviously, if psychologically you feel that if you can lose weight to a certain extent and it'll make you feel better, or make you feel better about yourself, then you should notice that almost 80% of your weight loss depends on your diet, right? But 20% depends on exercise. So I always call them the two sides of the coin, though the nutrition side is slightly heavier, because nutrition will determine a lot of things that happen to you. But what was pretty glaring to me, and when I was researching for my book, as well as talking to experts and fitness experts, that almost 60% of India does not do any kind of exercise. So what we see running around us, or going to cult and posting pictures of marathon, they're hardly the 40% of the country, right? So 60% of India does not do any kind of exercise, and which was surprising, but expected. It is in line with what I had seen in my clinical practice as well. And most of them gave three reasons, right? One was lack of time, that they don't have the time for it. So in a 24-hour day, they don't have time for exercise, which is fascinating. Second was they lacked motivation. So for everybody, the picture on the right where I see is two people skipping, doing high intensity workout, is what motivation, or it might, go back to a movie like Rocky, or go back to a movie like Dangal, which shows that, okay, you have to be really motivated to exercise. Well, not really. And last, which I will accept, is a very low awareness of the importance of exercise. Now, as a doctor, when I used to practice and I used to call people for follow-ups, they invariably used to miss follow-ups. And the common reason they used to give was lack of time. I don't have the time to come for a follow-up. And my seniors and my teachers from medical college, they always told me that it is never lack of time, it's a lack of priority. The reason we do not exercise is because it's not a priority for us. We feel exercise is only for those in sports or those who are in the army or those who are trying to play IPL, but it's not for everybody else. Right? The rest of us can just sit and watch. So you do any analysis. We have a gym in our apartment block. Now it is shut, but when it's open, hardly there used to be 50 to 60 entries for the day, while the number of apartments are more than 300. Similarly, if I count the number of people walking in the outer perimeter of the apartment block, we used to hardly have, at best, about 70, 80 people. So if I add the 70, 80 people to the 50 people in the gym, it pretty much sums up the number of 60% who are not exercising that's showing up. Right. So why is physical fitness important? So ICMR says that 150 minutes of activity per week is very important. That's it. It's 150 minutes, active minutes per week.
So does that also include my, say, a lot of us have like during a work day, we might be doing a lot of work, or activity. Does this 150-minute include all our physical movement through the day, or do we need dedicated 20 to 30 minutes for exercise?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. The answer is dedicated 20, 25 minutes, right? So I'll give you an example. Suppose you had to, go to the vegetable shop, and normally you take your car. And the distance to the vegetable shop is around 1 kilometer. And I make a conscious decision that I'm going to walk and walk back. I think that will amount to a deliberate exercise. You can definitely add it to your exercise regime. But if I have to go down and pick up a parcel, and as I'm going down, I take about 2 minutes, I'm going to add it to the 25 minutes a day. That's not
That's good.
So some days, there are days when I have to pick up something from a hardware store, and we have a hardware store about 1.5 kilometers away. So I usually take that time to not take a car, not take a scooter, anything, just walk all the way down, walk all the way up. That's a deliberate decision.
Right.
So if you make that into your lifestyle, you will see that the effects are pretty intense.
Right. But doctor, as people with disability, and many of us who are attending this call are people with disabilities, right? We always have a challenge. Like our mobility is often constrained. So is there something that we can do it on our own, where we don't have to really like not all of us may be able to equally access a gym or any of these healthcare facilities?
Correct. So this reminds me of a story I read some time ago, and I later confirmed this story. Can you see this image of a room?
To explain.
So it's plain. It is a very painful experience per se, because this is the room in which Nelson Mandela was kept on Robben Island. For all those years that he was jailed, this was his room. And you can see he's got a blanket, and he's got one dari on the ground, and he's got one small table and a plate.
So for the benefit of the visually impaired participant, how big would the room be?
I'm so sorry for interrupting, but I got a message from Rukmani ma'am saying the interpreter is frozen.
Okay, so we'll just wait for a minute for Adam to join back then.
Yes.
Right. Meanwhile, if you could just...
And Dr. Vikram sir, can you please share your screen again?
Adam, are you back?
No. Oh, yeah. But the cameras are off.
Can you see the screen, Mahesh, now?
Yes, sir, we can see this.
Adam?
Video.
Yeah. 1 second, Adamson. Yeah, you should be able to do that right now, Adam.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
So for those, for just to give you a sense of the room, the size is not more than 4 feet by 6 feet.
Wow.
That's how small it was. And see, the intention of keeping such a jail room was to break his spirit. It was just to make sure, and he was not allowed to go out anywhere, right? Nelson Mandela, who later on became the president of South Africa, the symbol of the fight against apartheid, was treated this way so that they could break his spirit down. And while this is all great, and there were a lot of stories about how he managed, how he came out of it. What was fascinating was that every day, without fail, Nelson Mandela would do 45 minutes of spot running in this cell, right? And when I heard that story, I was fascinated, saying that he was enclosed in this place with it had very little sunlight, no view outside, but he still kept his body strong by doing the spot running.
Right.
And that really helped me when the pandemic struck, right? And again, it's been about 2.5, 3 weeks since I've left my house. And I use my room. I do spot running. I do HIIT, which is high intensity training exercises, or I do yoga in a very small space. I do not require much space, and I haven't gone out for walking or any of the other running and gym, etc. So this is one example where even people with disabilities, if they are not able to access the outside, and even more so now with the pandemic on, can easily do that in their room.
Right.
Again, there are many apps. The one I use is called Seven, Seven. It has 7-minute circuits, and you can add as many circuits as you want, which helps you do certain exercises, and the intensity also varies. The other advantage of doing that is that obviously it's tracking the number of minutes I'm active, and that activity helps me build to my goal towards physical fitness, which is around minimum of 150 minutes a week. There are some other apps. I also use Google Fit. Any Android phone, you should be able to download Google Fit for free.
Yeah, or Apple Health in Apple.
Yeah, or Apple Health if you're a iOS. If you like the iOS, and Apple Health is also a very, very good app. There are fitness bands available. It all depends on your choice. But again, just like nutrition, please record how many active minutes you had. It's very important. And if you use Google Fit, it also gives you health points as described by WHO. And these health points really indicate the state of your health, especially your heart, and how far away are you from a cardiovascular disease. So diet and exercise are the twin foundations for good health. And those need to be recorded. Those need to be monitored. And you need to pay mindful attention to it. So with this, Ankit, I'll move on to two other areas which I feel we need absolute attention.
Yes.
And this one is a slightly emotional topic because this is a condition that runs in my family. So almost, if you meet 6 people in the world with diabetes, one of them will be an Indian.
Right.
And, suddenly diabetes has become the number one cause of trouble. In the olden days, we used to have deaths due to malaria. We had diphtheria, whooping cough, pertussis, tetanus, so many things. But today, a lot of our foundational healthcare problems are being attributed to diabetes. So where did diabetes come from, and why did it suddenly become such a super spreader that despite coronavirus, diabetes remains a condition that can determine how you react to coronavirus as well.
I think diabetes is no less than a pandemic if you really see it in the way it is kind of spread all over the world.
Correct. And there are a lot of theories to it as to why diabetes suddenly spread. There are also some controversial points that the parameters for diabetes have been reduced constantly to make people look more diabetic, and the same holds for hypertension, which we'll discuss in a while. But needless to say, whether we discuss a parameter as diabetic or pre-diabetic, uh, the fact remains that those with diabetes have a lot of structural issues with their circulatory system. Diabetes does affect the kidneys, and it also causes a lot of issues in your extremities, especially in the blood supply to your legs, to your hands, to your head. And a lot of cases you have conditions like canker sores or diabetic foot that appears, which leads to amputations, etc. So, in my opinion, diabetes is a condition which has to be managed, especially psychologically. It is a very very rampant condition. That's why I said the two things that really help you lay the foundation to counter all this are diet and exercise. And let me go slightly deeper into diabetes. Now, what are the top causes of diabetes? Right. Uh, the common misconception is eating sugar causes diabetes. Well, the reality is it doesn't. Eating sugar cannot cause diabetes,
That's
right?
good to hear. My chocolate bar is not causing me diabetes.
Yeah, but let me come to it, right? Don't get too happy. There's a catch here, right? So the top three causes are hereditary. It's very important. Like I said, check what your ancestors ate, and you will probably know what is good for you. But also check if they had diabetes. My great grandfather had diabetes. My grandmother had diabetes. My mother, unfortunately, had diabetes too. So I know where I'm heading. I am fighting a future which hereditarily is against me. So all I can do is delay the inevitable. I know that. But delaying the inevitable and managing the condition are the cornerstones of my defense against diabetes, right? And I've discussed that extensively in my book, where I've managed my levels right from 2014 till date to a certain extent. And luckily for me, so far I'm not even in the pre-diabetic range. So there is hope for me, but I know eventually it will succumb, but I can only make sure that I manage the condition. The second is lack of physical activity. And this is where Ankit, your chocolate bar comes in.
Right.
What happens is, if you're physically active, then the sugar that enters your bloodstream through Ankit's chocolate bar will be consumed immediately as carbohydrates. But if you do not have any physical activity, then that sugar, which is roaming around in the system, starts getting absorbed into other areas. And that eventually converts to a few things. One is obviously it will lead to a greater deposit of fat in the body, but that's not what is causing diabetes. The issue, the bigger issue is it creates an insulin tolerance. Higher the amount of sugar in the body, higher the insulin tolerance. That means more amount of insulin is pumped in, which creates further tolerance. So in order to maintain the insulin from acting the way it is, you have to keep on adding that 150 minutes of physical activity. So as you see, all of it is related to each other. Your hereditary diet can give you indications of what will work, what will not work. Your lack of physical activity will influence the way insulin treats sugar in the body. And third is stress. Stress is the number one cause for diabetes. And if you look at the way our diabetes levels have really skyrocketed, and there's a direct correlation when the years of our life expectancy has gone up and the number of diabetics in the country have gone up. The number is close to 50 million. That's what I say in the book, because that's the official number. But in reality, we'll be closer to 77 million diabetics in India, right? Which is the second highest. And there are certain people who are more predisposed to diabetes. For example, in America, the African Americans are more predisposed to diabetes. Some of the Asian countries are more predisposed to diabetes. But stress remains a constant causative element. So eating sugar does not cause diabetes, but lack of physical activity, stress causes causes the condition to worsen. And you should check for hereditary, because a lot of it is gene controlled, right? And there is research going on if genetically this can be modified. The day that is successful, we will have a cure for diabetes. Right now, there's no cure. We can only manage the condition, right? So there are some common symptoms of diabetes. which is more urges to go to the bathroom, dry mouth, unusual thirst, blurred vision, slow wound healing. This is especially for people with disabilities. If you see that your wounds are not healing very fast, or you're having repeated skin infection, it's best to get yourself tested. And obviously numbness in the legs. Numbness also manifests itself in vitamin B12 deficiency, which we'll discuss later. But numbness in your legs is a very important indicator. If you see that, you should definitely get it checked. So my rule of thumb is use HbA1c levels. You cannot test it at home. Unfortunately, you have to call for a lab. And if you keep the levels below 6 or 6.1, you should be fine. HbA1c gives you 120 days of your sugar levels in the body because the sugar molecule attaches itself to RBC, your red blood cells. And your red blood cells, they carry the sugar in addition to oxygen. And the life of a red blood cell is 120 days. So that gives you your 120-day levels. The other one is to do a spot check. You can use a glucometer. I use one from Morpin Labs, Dr. Morpin Labs. So if your random sugar is around 200 milligram per deciliter, you should be fine. And that can be done at home. You don't need to go anywhere. You just have to take some blood and put it on the film and check it. There are now other ways of doing it. I heard Google is working on a contact lens, which can tell you your sugar levels. There are also these devices from Medtronic that measure your diabetes from your sweat, your sugar levels from your sweat. So there's a lot of fascinating research that's happening in the area, but this is a condition you have to watch out for. And it is very important to be aware of the situation more than monitoring it.
That's very helpful.
Yeah, let me move slightly ahead. I see that we are already at 11:50.
Right.
We took slightly longer in the initial parts, but let me just go through some of these areas. The second thing that comes with diabetes is hypertension. And now it seems we have more hypertensive patients than diabetic patients. Almost 277 million people in India suffer from some kind of hypertension. That is 1 in every 8 Indians. And again, hypertension, like diabetes, is a silent killer. I discuss a case in my book where one of my friends who was in the advertising world, he really went through hell because he had a heart attack in the car while driving to work because his BP had gone up to a great extent and he was almost in the middle of a stroke. Luckily, he was saved at the right minute and he made a lot of lifestyle changes after that to get his life back. It is the high blood pressure is the most common reason for premature deaths. When you hear about, oh, this young executive, he was running on a treadmill and then he passed away due to an instant cardiac arrest, it is mostly because his blood pressure had gone through the roof. How to manage it? Well, stress has to be managed just like diabetes, and I'll discuss stress in a while. But the usual levels are anywhere between 120 and 140 by 80 by 85, systolic by diastolic. So if you have this range, you are fine. It's very age dependent. Your blood pressure might also be showing higher if you are dehydrated. You don't have enough water in the body, right? So that's another precondition. You got to invest in that. I will recommend all of you to invest in a very small digital, not like this one. This one is the one I used to use in my practice. It's a sphygmomanometer, which is mercury enabled, and the stethoscope is required for it. But there are digital ones. I use a one from Omron, which has a digital cuff and it gives you readings almost instantly. And if you're not convinced by the calibration, take 3 readings and take an average of the 3, right? It's very important. Again, the minute you feel that your blood pressure is high, recommendation is immediately consult a doctor. Don't even wait for it. Even if it's false positive, it's fine. Better safe than sorry, but pressure has an immediate way of getting to your head and causing stroke, etc. I'll quickly run through 2 conditions because I want to talk about mental wellness for a while. Vitamin D is a very interesting vitamin. Almost 70% of Indians are deficient, and this is primarily because we have shifted to very sedentary lifestyle. We don't go outdoors anymore. I think the 30% who don't have vitamin D deficiencies should be the farmers who are working in the fields, right? We are not working in the fields anymore. All of us take shelter from the sun because of pollution and because of all the toxic rays and the ultraviolet rays of the sun and the damage they can do to us. Most common cause is sedentary lifestyle. Symptoms is definitely mood swings. If you're feeling that you are in coronavirus during the pandemic, you're in lockdown and there's a lot of swing in your mood, it's mostly your vitamin D levels that are acting up. Also, if you're not able to lose weight despite a hectic workout schedule and managing your diet, maybe good idea to look at vitamin D levels, right? And it also causes a weakness or pain in the bones. Uh, Vitamin D is a very common issue in India. In certain cases, if it goes, below single digits, you have to get injections as well. But normally, about 20 milligrams per milliliter is a good idea to keep. And again, vitamin D cannot be checked at home. You have to go to a NABL certified lab. NABL is National Board Accredited Labs. These are labs that have been certified by the government. That means all their equipment is calibrated, and their processes and protocols to avoid mix-up of any samples are checked regularly. So when you go to a lab and you call somebody from a lab, make sure it's an NABL accredited lab, right? Don't go for a regular lab, because the chances are that they will kind of confuse your samples. Um, the other area that I want you to look at, and this is maybe forms a part of nutrition, but it's a very big fallacy in the world that vegetarians have all the vitamins they require from vegetables. Unfortunately, there's one vitamin that does not come from vegetables, and that's vitamin B12. Right from childhood, I remember, because we came from a very vegetarian lifestyle family, and I'm still a vegetarian. So I don't use any animal products. So I did end up with a vitamin B12 deficiency. And the only way to counter it is to either increase the dairy products in your life, milk, dahi, paneer, all of them are possible. If you are a non-vegetarian, you can have any of the other items, like salmon is a good source of B12, and so is clams, and so are eggs actually. Uh, Vitamin B12 also leads to that numbness in your hands and feet. This is almost similar to high diabetic levels. So if you have numbness, you could either have, it could be because of increased sugar, it could be because of vitamin B12 deficiency. Right. The other thing is, especially in people with disabilities and senior citizens, if you're forgetting a lot of things, if you're not able to remember names or places, it could be B12. A lot of the people confuse it with Alzheimer's, right, or early onset Alzheimer's. Last but not the least, if you're not able to balance yourself properly, right, if you have ataxia or you have gait ataxia, which is the inability to balance yourself while walking or walk straight, it could be vitamin B12. It cannot be anything serious. Again, it has to be tested in a lab. There are no satisfactory home tests for testing these levels, right? And 300 to 950 picograms per milliliter is a normal test level. Last but not the least, I want to just talk a little bit about mental health. Uh, the government data shows that we have about 7% people who suffer from mental health issues. The unofficial number is as high as 20 to 30%. And post-COVID, we are expected to see a lot more mental health cases. Right? So when it comes to mental wellness, and there are a lot of reports on unhappiness, how India is a very unhappy country. Very great. And today we are one of the most unhappiest countries in the world. And the happiest countries are the Scandinavian countries. I think there is some mismatch in the way we set our expectations to what we achieve. In my opinion, a lot of the mental unhappiness comes from unrealistic expectations. And I'll give you my own example. So when I started my clinical practice, my only objective was to make money. And I used to benchmark myself against, entrepreneurs and others who made a lot of money. And in retrospect, it is the worst idea to get into a medical field with the idea to make money, because there are better ways of making money. And in the healthcare field, you're here to serve, right? That should be your first criteria. It should be the benefit and the care that you provide to your patients should be number one criteria, not money. And somewhere that entire period when I was practicing, because I had so many misplaced priorities and unrealistic expectations from things, I suffered from a lot of stress. I did suffer from insomnia for almost 5 years. I will not get sleep properly. I'll be currently always agitated. And then all that changed. All that changed because I started getting my priorities right. So one of the first things we did was, when we started Healthcare India, we said, we are not going after money. Money is a byproduct of what we do, and that's how it should be. We should go after increased access to care, improving quality of care. I also started a lot of yoga and meditation. I continue doing that. So this pandemic is going to test us mentally more than physically, right? While physical fitness and diet remain the cornerstones, you can manage your mind. You have to manage your mind, and you have to think positive. You have to look at positive things, like what you can do during this time, or where you can spend time. Can you spend more time with your kids? You save, most of us are saving up to 2 hours on commute. What are we doing with the time, right? Are you pursuing your hobbies? Are you taking care of your loved ones? So my recommendation is, if you feel there are mood swings, and if you feel depressed, if you feel there is something missing, please talk to a counselor immediately. Don't even hide it. And today it's very easy, because as of last year, telemedicine is allowed by the government of India. We can always go and talk to a counselor anonymously, and I think we should take advantage. So Ankit, I'll just take a pause. We'll take questions if there are any.
Generally, there's a lot of hesitancy, on your point on reaching out. I think physical fitness, physical ailments, now all of us are very conscious. It's seen outside, but the moment it's talk about mental wellness, because it's not seen, it is kind of suppressed for a very, very long time. And I think a lot of us then have then emotional outbursts and just inability to manage our own selves.
Yeah, I agree with you. I had, so incidentally, when my mom passed away, I couldn't take it, right? Because at least for me, it was like a hole. And I don't think it has ever been covered. Even today, I feel her presence, but I miss her presence too, in a way. And I went to a counselor. I did go to a counselor because I did not want it to impact me. And the counseling really helped, to an extent. It helped me come out with issues. It helped me rationalize. I read a lot of books. There was a very interesting book I read. It's called the Tibetan Book of the Dead, I think. And it really helped me understand what was going, at least come to terms with my own feelings. And it's not that I've gotten over it, but I'm in a better position to manage it, and I'm aware of it. I'm aware this is a gap, right? And at least for me, my mother was a very important lady.
Right.
So and the other thing I did was, I did tell my wife. I told her that I will need this, right? And I wanted her to be aware, right? And I also wanted her to watch me, whether I was doing anything crazy. I had given her a set of things that to watch out for. If I did any of those, she's supposed to alert our physician immediately. My family physician also knew about it. So it was like I created an ecosystem who could support me. And I was not ashamed of it, right? It's not like I went out on Facebook and wrote about it. But those who were near and dear to me knew that I was going through this phase. And they knew that this had to be taken care of.
Yeah.
I think a similar activity has to be followed. I think mental health is a very, very private reserve. But at the same time, you need help. And for that, it's important to seek outside help.
So also as people with disability, and often like all of us, many of us have this, thing, we always have this condition, we feel that there is a vulnerability, we feel there's not a lot of control, we want to get things in order, and a lot of us try very hard to get, up to the speed, but still there's a lot of stress around that. I think that causes a lot of stress. So any advice on, say, for us specifically, when we really talking about maintaining stress, or sometimes it's just our thoughts or our own expectations of ourselves create a lot more stress.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. You see, anybody, as it is, life is tough. And, you were trying to achieve things, meet your expectations. And it's very difficult. And for somebody with disability, he's been, in a way dealt a rough hand, right? A wrong hand. And he or she might think that why me, right? Why do I have to do everything that everybody else does plus deal with this? The way you to manage it, at least in my personal opinion, is to focus on things you can control, and ignore things you can't. Right? If you can't, for example, I see a lot of anxiety on elections. For people sitting in Karnataka, anxiety about elections in some other state. Well, it has no effect on them. And number two, they can't control it because they are citizens of. At least their voting rights are in another state. They can't even do anything about it. So I always tell them that focus on things that you can control. There are enough problems in Karnataka to be solved. Right? For example, we still have a problem with our water
Right.
in Bangalore. There is not enough water. If you really want to stress yourself about something, let's stress about water, because that is going to be a major issue, right? And it's not about worrying about that Cape Town is going dry in about 10 years. That you can't control again. Worry
Right.
about your local issues. So there are a lot of neighbors of mine who met me and you're talking about water, and we got them involved in the rainwater harvesting in the apartment block, right? And then a lot of them dropped out also because I think when you have to take affirmative action, it is very tough. So what I'll recommend everybody is follow the inverted pyramid, focus on local issues more, because those are under your control. What
Right.
happens in your apartment, your society, your road, and you will see your stress levels coming down. If I
Right.
stress over something that I have no control over, I don't think that will really help me.
Right.
And second is keep your expectations low. We always, when we got into coronavirus, the first thing I heard was there'll be a vaccine for everybody, and everybody they'll be vaccinated in their local apartment blocks or offices, and everything will be hunky dory. Unfortunately, that's not how global supply chains work, right?
Right.
There are forces at work which are much greater than that, and everything takes time. So
Right.
what is under our control is to stay indoors, to not get involved in with people who are at least who are infected, support those who are, take care of our mental health, physical health, and just work in a way that does not require medical intervention, because right now the system is totally over. So that way you'll see your stress levels absolutely coming down.
Right. And also what worked for me is really accepting my self, like being comfortable, or any other identity. I think the moment we start getting comfortable with our own identity, and we start accepting and possibly start loving it, I think our stress levels also kind of comes down with that.
Absolutely, I agree with you. I think that is the only way to do it. And there's another. I used to have always this confusion, having being a South Indian who lived in the north quite a lot. Uh, Culturally, what am I, right? And it's very important to come to that discussion with yourself and set ground rules for yourself and accept. Because once you do that, you will see dramatically the amount of stress in you go down tremendously.
So on that note, let's see if there are questions in the chat window. Also, if there are questions people may want to ask, Mahesh, we can possibly allow people to unmute themselves also if they want to. But before that, if there are questions in the chat box, we can take that.
Yes, sir. So everybody has option to unmute themselves if they want to ask question directly to sir, or they can just chat. They can just type their questions on the chat box, please.
Do we already have anything
coming? No,
Not
sir,
yet.
nothing.
Okay. So yeah, we request anybody, any questions, comments from any of the participants who are listening in. I felt the whole conversation with Dr. Vikram has been very engaging, something very topical, something which has been very foundational, which often doesn't get discussed enough. So really thanks, Dr. Vikram for that. So let's.
Sorry, Ankit, can I ask a question?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, this is Jagdish from Delhi University. Thank you very much, Dr. Vikram, first of all, for taking out time. And, this is such a great lecture. I would have really missed it. And I wish the recording will be circulated widely so that everybody gets benefited. I have a very specific question. Sorry, it may not be a very generic question, but I came out of the hospital just about 3 days ago after severe COVID treatment and steroids and all. So my question was, I usually maintain a healthy diet and also walk every day. How should I slowly get back to the normal routine, and what precautions, one should take in the post-COVID situation, post-COVID treatment, to slowly get back to the normal routine?
Yeah, so you see, the biggest impact that you would have had because of COVID would have been your lungs. And right now, the focus should be on improving your vital capacity and your breath hold capacity. If you listen to some of the messages that have come from AIMS and even from Medanta.
Right.
They talked about physiotherapy, chest physiotherapy, which is a very ignored part of our medical system, which really helps us increase our lung capacity right now. So there are a few exercises that are very specific to chest physiotherapy, in which you breathe in and you hold your breath, and you do it incrementally. You increase the duration of which how long you'll hold it. That's number one. And
Okay.
this is also given in I think in the Government of India website as well, as one of the best ways to maintain your air vitality and lung capacity. Number two, the second area where it would have severely impacted you is obviously your ability to fight other infections, because they would have focused only on treating your COVID. And
Right.
there is a good possibility that some other aspects of your body might be more prone to infections right now.
Right.
So the way to counter that is to generally focus on your immunity boosting, which is
What? Focus on what?
on your boosting your immunity right now.
Okay, immunity.
Yeah, so that would require you to stay indoors for a while,
Right.
not go out too much, and any exercises that you have to do, you should do it in your proximity of your house, whether on-spot walking, on-spot jogging, or do some basic stretch exercises just to get your muscle tone back and get your body moving again. Number three is look at your look at the ways of having more vitamins, especially vitamin B complex, vitamin D, zinc, and
How long should I continue the vitamin B complex?
B complex you can continue for a while. I would say I would recommend talking to your physician as well, just to make sure that he's on board with this treatment, and you can discuss that this is something that you want to do to boost your immunity. But B complex should be continued for about 2 to 3 months, in my opinion.
Okay.
B complex, C, D, and zinc are very important for you right now.
All three have to be continued for about three months?
Yeah, about 3 months, in my opinion. But again, what I'll recommend is speak
Talk to the doctor.
And just get a prescription for it so that he knows you're doing this, so that if there's anything else that hits you, he knows what you've already taken.
Okay. Sorry, one quick question. You talked about this book about the Tibetan author. Can you just repeat the title once again for us?
I think I had a slide on it.
Tibetan Book of the Dead.
It's
Tibetan Book of the Dead.
It's called the Tibetan Book of the Dead.
Okay, bye.
It is by it's by a monk.
Okay.
Report I think was his name, Buddhist name. But if you search for Tibetan Book of the Dead, you'll get it. It's very good for you to help you overcome death of a near one, I would say.
Ankit, very quick question. This book by Dr. Vikram, is it available in audio format somewhere, or if it can be made available?
So right now it is available in Kindle.
It will be available on Audible as well?
So I think Dr. Vikram is working on that. And as of now, it is not available, but yeah, I'll keep you informed as soon as it's made available in Audible.
Get it recorded. I think that will be very helpful. Or at least if you can have these mainstream websites like Audible or Storytel, I think many people are always using audiobooks. It's going to be useful otherwise anyway.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Do we have any questions in the chat box?
Yes.
Mahesh?
Yes, sir. So we have question from Kanika ma'am. How do genes impact our health and diseases?
Okay. So I think genetics and gene therapy is the future for medicine and also for wellness. Genes have a huge bearing on your ability to contract certain lifestyle diseases and your ability to counteract certain other conditions. It's all genetically predisposed. So the way the body reacts to stimuli, the nutrients that you absorb naturally, what you're not able to absorb is also determined by your genes, right? So those 23 set of chromosomes that we have, pretty much determine how your life is going to be from here on. The only challenge we've had is we don't have too much data on it in India, though the gene therapy studies in the US and UK have been pretty advanced. And Israel is another center which is doing a lot of advanced studies. There was a pilot started by Global Gene Corp some time ago. It was led by one of my classmates, incidentally, Sumit Jamwar, and he's one of the people I reached out to while discussing the book as well. And I talked to him about how soon can we start releasing gene-related data in India. And he had started a study which got halted due to COVID. Now, post-COVID, I think this is an area where even the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, as well as the Ministry of Science and Technology, are investing heavily to understand our gene therapy. Genes have also got an impact on how you react to things like lifestyle conditions like diabetes and hypertension too. So you're right from your, it predisposes what you can do, the way you react to stimuli, the way your health is, and also what works for you, what doesn't work for you is determined by your genes. So it's a very essential component of your lifestyle. And we, unfortunately, in India, we don't have much data right now. But this is an area which will continue to evolve. And this is probably an area which we will find a cure for diabetes. Right now, there is no cure. There's only ways to contain and manage and reduce the sugar levels. I hope that helps.
Right. Adam, I would request you if you could ask our friends who are using sign language if there are any questions from them. Any other questions, Mahesh, also on the chat box?
No, sir, nothing else.
Okay.
Yes, that's my question. I see there is no questions from anybody's end.
Okay. Okay, so if just a last call, any other questions from anybody else?
I think Rukmani ma'am would like to speak.
Okay, Adam. Go ahead, Rukmani.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm not able to hear anything. Was there a question?
So Rukmani is, I think, asking, Adam will interpret for us.
Yes.
So as of now, we all know that we are in a pandemic situation. So, we are not going out. We are just staying at home. So many people all are suffering. And we are not able to, have this interaction with anyone face to face. So there are many, deaf people, who all have been suffering. They're not being able to share with anyone. They don't even know, what kind of diet need to be taken and what kind of precautions need to be taken. And there are also people who all, they all are left alone at home. And so they're not in contact with the family. So there are people, doing the routine things, day by day and getting depressed. So what do you suggest, for them? And and also we're very glad that we are having this session for persons with disabilities, and I'm really very happy that we have conducted this session. I'll also keep informed other, people who have missed this session.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you, ma'am. This is unprecedented. It is extremely tough. And I see a lot more impact happening on your disability, senior citizens who've been left to themselves. And also we are seeing a very, new scenario emerge where, at least 3 cases that I have dealt with, where the parents have passed away and the children are still there. the family members are not able to take them in, his grandparents are not being able to take them in because the government of India has given a protocol saying that some citizens are more vulnerable. So what can be done in this scenario, right? Obviously, the state and the government agencies have started moving in and trying to help some of these conditions. But what can you do? I will again go back to the same scenario that what is in our control, we should manage that. I think the most important thing is to keep our minds occupied with something. The only thing we can't do is leave the house. But inside the house, what we do with our time is up to us. A lot of us, a lot of people have resorted to, watching TV or, enjoying some of the OTT streaming platforms, and a lot of content has been released there. That's one way of keeping themselves occupied. But what I will recommend is to pick up a hobby, to pick up something that we were interested in doing. Maybe it's writing, reading, singing, recording, webinars like this. These are absolutely essential because it keeps our social contact alive, right? And we are interacting with a lot more people who normally we wouldn't have spoken to. So I think it's very important to keep the social connect alive. I know a group of individuals have started an online virtual Antakshari system where they get on a Zoom calls and they're singing, songs. A lot of people have resorted to video calls, having family connect over video calls. I was talking to a case a few days ago where at least 3 members of the family were infected with COVID, one in hospital, 2 in 2 separate rooms, and the rest of the family, which was not infected, was in the rest of the house. And they used to talk twice daily, one in the morning, one in the evening, on WhatsApp calls. So the important thing is to continue to connect with as many people as possible. Focus on your mental wellness and physical strength. Focus on diet, but at the same time, keep your mind occupied. They say idle mind is devil's workshop. Most of depression either comes from unrealistic expectations or having nothing to do. The other important thing I've done, which has really helped me, is I took to gardening. I have a very small garden in my balcony on my right hand side, and I keep telling everybody that this garden has saved me in this pandemic, because anytime I even if I think I'm getting upset, I look at my plants. And this is a habit that even my mother had. She used to be very fond of gardening. So in a way, I've connected with her during this time through my gardening. So it's very important to go back and focus on areas that are very important to you, but you might have forgotten or haven't had time to pursue due to our lifestyle. I think COVID is a good time to relook at those for at least for the brief time in which we'll be inside, because this will be over soon. And we'll be back to our lives in about a year and a half's time anyway.
And today, I think from a hobby, nurturing our hobby point of view, there are a lot of online resources. Like there are online cooking material available, some really great YouTube chefs, or if you're into origami, there are enough artists available, dance, a lot of them, so today, we are living in a time where information is also readily available. So it's just a will to nurture a hobby and really invest that time. So I think we all can make a promise that when we go back to our normal lifestyle in the near future, we should go back with a new interests in mind. It should be a new us when we are going in there.
Agreed.
Right. So any other questions do we have, or we can then, I think we've far exceeded the time, but then I think the session was very, very useful. I could see the audience was very engaged. Is there a question by someone? Okay, so with that, Dr. Vikram, I so want to thank you. It has been such a wonderful session. On behalf of all the participants who attended this call and all those who are watching us on Facebook Live, I really thank you so much for taking out time. I know you are very busy. A lot of people are reaching out to you for help, and you took the time for this. for this session. And I know you've promised me, and I want to give a caveat to the audience out here. We'll soon be conducting a similar session in Hindi for the audience. So yes, for those whom we were not able to connect, or possibly there was a language barrier, we'll do it in Hindi very soon. And on that note, I would want you to just talk about your book, Own Your Health, before we wind up. Where can we get access to it? Yeah, over to you, Dr. Vikram.
Yeah, thank you, Ankit. So also I want to thank Mahesh for hosting this session, Adam for the interpretation, and obviously Utkarsh for helping us through this process in building the PPTs, etc. So thank you all, and thank you to the audience for listening in.
Yeah.
Own Your Health is available on Amazon and Flipkart, and it is available on Kindle as well. And it is audible. I have to check. I got the feedback. I will check on it and come back. But it is readily available right now. And I focus on a lot of areas, apart from the ones I mentioned here. We talk a lot about other addictions, especially looking at things like sugar, things like mental wellness, things like sleep. And we also cover briefly what the government is doing and what the industry is doing. So the idea is to empower everybody to manage their own health. Clearly, as you can see in the pandemic, the healthcare system is not in a position to take care of everybody. And things are just going to get progressively bad as we go along. Once we come out of the pandemic as well, the lifestyle diseases are still affecting us. So the idea is to create a scenario in which all of us can manage our own health, and then only the emergency cases, the palliative care cases, they can go to the hospitals. This is especially important for people with disabilities because you've already taken charge of your lives. You've overcome a lot to get here. I think a little more focus on your health will work wonders to simplify your position in society. Thank you all for your time, and I thank you, Ankit, for this opportunity as well. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome, and thank you so much. Your book is really amazing, and I've read this, and I can definitely tell it's a life changer for all of us. So all of you are watching this, please do grab a copy. It's definitely going to be very, very helpful. On that note, thank you once again, Dr. Vikram, Mahesh, Utkarsh, and Adam for all your support and all the lovely participants who joined in for the session. Thank you, and we'll see you soon.
Yes.